Okay, thank you, Bob, for that announcement, and welcome everybody back to the conference room here. Don't you think it's really great that we're seeing more and more women in the field of ufology? Absolutely. And I like to think of it like the Spice Girls of ufology, being from the UK and all. So Esen Şekenkara is a leading Turkish ufologist who became involved in the UFO field in 1998 with the opening of the Sirius UFO Space Sciences Research Center, where she worked until 2002. The center is the first in Turkey and has organized 3 international UFO symposiums in Istanbul, where many of the world's leading authorities have participated as speakers. The center also created a weekly TV documentary, UFO Reality, co-produced by Esen, which has broadcast on a national TV channel in Turkey. She's also one of the 3 founders of the International UFO Museum, which was opened in January of 2002 in Istanbul. Esen is an international MUFON representative for Turkey, and her reports have appeared on websites and publications around the world. So with the best UFO evidence from Turkey, our Turkish Spice Girl herself, Esen Şekenkara.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Mr. John Schuessler, Mrs. Schuessler, and everyone at the MUFON for organizing this great event. It's a great crowd, great conference, and very sophisticated. And please let's give an applause to the people working behind those curtains. They're working very hard there. Thank you very much. Well, today I'm going to talk about the best UFO cases that took place in Turkey, and I'd like to, can we move on to the slides, please? To talk about the UFO histories in Turkey, we have to talk about the history of my country, actually. So there are some points that I would like to highlight here. Turkey is actually a very young republic. It was founded in 1923 by Atatürk, who ended the Ottoman Empire. And the UFO researchers have got some troubles in getting into the archives of the Ottoman Empire, which actually has about more than 700 years of ruling. They were one of the widest and the most and the strongest empires on this planet. And even if we researchers went into the archives of the Ottoman Empire, we would be having some troubles in reading those documents because they are all in Arabic letters. Therefore, we have got no idea if there are any UFO reports that were recorded during the Ottoman Empire period. But after the announcement of Turkish Republic in 1923, there were some various reforms made by Atatürk himself. And one of them was the alphabet reform, which took place in 1928. And he changed, he brought Turkey a new alphabet, not Arabic letters, but Latin alphabet, Latin letters. Therefore, the cases I'm going to talk about will be the cases that took place during the period of the Republic, which is about 82 years old. Well, this whole phenomenon, this UFO phenomenon, is taking place all over the world, as you well know. The history of the sightings are actually as old as our story, our history. And only now we have the chance to put these subjects on a more scientific ground, because now, only now we have the cameras, video cameras, we can photograph these things, we can film them on our video cameras and do some scientific research. But when we did not have this technology, what we had in the early times were the myths. and also some very early paintings, cave paintings, and some of the early religious paintings, such as this one. Now, this is called The Baptism of Christ by Arthur Gelder, and it is displayed in Cambridge, UK, at Fitzwilliam Museum. If we could give a little bit of light to the slide, I think we would be able to see that very curious-looking object in the sky, which is beaming down some things. Can you see it clearly now? That's a very interesting picture. But this is not the only example. There are more. Just like this one, which is an example of 13th century art, which was founded in France. Another Christian painting called Virgin Mary in San Giovannino, School of Lippi from 15th century. And as you can see in this second picture, there is a man looking to a strange object in the sky. And here is the detail. That is what he is looking at. So in the religious art, especially the Christian art, it is possible to find some objects, some curious objects like this. And here is another example, which is called The Annunciation with St. Emedius by Carlo Crivelli from 15th century. As you can see, again, there is another strange object in the sky beaming something onto the forehead of the lady that you can see there. Well, when we are talking about Christian art, it is possible to find some things like this. But if you wanted to talk about the Islamic art, and 90% of Turkey are Muslims, however, it is a secular country and ruled with democracy. But still, in the Islamic art, it is a sin to draw the faces of the prophets and make their sculptures. Because according to the Islamic beliefs, if you were drawing the faces of the prophets, then you would actually be creating some totems, some idols. Therefore, people would be worshipping humans instead of worshipping God. That's the idea behind that. So in Islamic art, we don't have any pictures like that, but what we have is only floral patterns, nothing human, all taken from nature. But I can show you something that was found in Turkey, which is this sculpture in the city of Van, over there. An object which looks very much like a rocket. In the mid part, actually, there is a man sitting in it. This is the arm. The head is missing. This is the arm. And these are the legs. And you can see it is sitting in it. And it looks like he is operating the capsule. And at the back part of the sculpture here, looks very much like the firing system of the jet. And this sculpture is 3,000 years old. And at that time, there were just no jets. They didn't have any technology to make any Earth technology that would be corresponding with this with the technology in this sculpture, what this sculpture is presenting. So I don't think Urartu people just made it as an ornament. And when we looked at the Christian art, we found some objects looking very similar to this sculpture. This is a fresco, Kosovo fresco, from 12th century. Here's another one. So as we can see, people in rocket-like vehicles are not something very unusual in the early times. And here is the object found in Turkey. Now, I've got some interesting story about this object. It was in 1999, if I'm not wrong. At the time, I was working at Sirius UFO Space Sciences Research Center in Istanbul. And the German ufologist and researcher and author, Michael Hessman, came to Istanbul to visit us. And we were having a chat, and we were talking about this particular sculpture. And what we know about this sculpture is that now it is in the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul, but is not being displayed. And nobody has the chance to see it. But Michael thought, as he was in Istanbul, so he thought, oh, maybe, I would go and take my chance. So he went to the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul, and he wanted to talk to the manager. He presented himself as a German journalist, and when he was talking to the manager, he said, well, I came all the way from Germany, so I know about this sculpture. I know that it is kept in the museum, so could you please show it to me? And the manager of the museum said, oh, you know what, Mr. Hessman, you don't have to worry about that sculpture because we have found out that it is fake. Then Michael said, oh, that's great. If it's fake, I would like to buy it. How much is it? Well, of course, they did not sell it to Michael, but they are still keeping something fake in their museum. And how strange is that? Okay, now let's move to some of the interesting cases in Turkey. And let's start with our capital, which is Ankara, right there. And here's an incident which took place in 1989. And the headline says, I think you can understand that, UFO alarm. And it says, our jets chased the flying saucers over the Ankara sky. Now, on 2nd of February in 1989, at about 10 p.m., 10 objects were seen over the capital's airport. And they were emitting colorful lights. And of course, immediately, a F-Phantom and a fleet of F-16 jets took off from the military airport and started to chase these things. But these 10 UFOs just speeded up so high in the sky that the jets were unable to reach that altitude. As it was something alarming, because you are seeing these 10 objects over the capital. Again, General Director of the state airfields were immediately called to the airport, and you can see him in the picture, in the slide actually. He's the one sitting and smoking, looking very depressed. I can understand him because there are the UFOs who he is weaving, and there is this journalist taking his picture at the time of the sighting. And he must be very depressed thinking about what he's going to tell the reporter. And the ground control officer, the one with the binoculars, is set to shout as, I'm seeing them, I'm seeing the UFOs, they are here. So that was quite an exciting scene for everybody at the airport that day. And the second very, very important case, again in Ankara, in our capital, but this time the witnesses are government officials, and one of them is a very, very important one, who is Turkey's 19th Prime Minister, and you can see him there in the picture, the one with the glasses. And the headline says, strange aerial object over Esenboğa. Esenboğa is the name of the capital's airport. Now, the date is 26th of January in 1983, and Turgut Özal, our 19th Prime Minister at the time, who then became Turkey's 8th president in 1989, was at the airport, and his destination was to Istanbul. And together with his wife and other government officials, he saw a strange thing in the sky, which was actually initially spotted by a British Airways pilot. The ground control did not notice this object first, so it was a British Airways pilot who saw this strange object over the airport and reported it to the ground control. Then all planes taking off and landing at the airport reported the same object to the ground control, and luckily, or incidentally, the Prime Minister was there, and they were all looking up in the sky and watching this thing. And in the picture in the slide is the actual photo that was taken at the moment of the sighting. So, of course, the journalists would not miss this chance, and they asked the Prime Minister to make a comment on the object that he was looking at. Well, he just said, "Oh, lucky you, now you have got some good headlines for your papers tomorrow," but he did not make any further comments on the sighting. Now, let's move to Istanbul. This is where I live. Istanbul is a unique city, having its one part in Europe and the other in Asia. For example, I live in the Asian part, but I go to Europe every day to work. So I commute between two continents. And through the city runs the sea. There's a strait which we call Bosphorus. And the incident that I'm going to tell you about took place in Bosphorus, in Istanbul. Now, what makes this incident very significant? The first reason is the size of the object that was encountered, which is kilometers in diameter. So it was huge. It was a really, really big object hovering in the sky. The second is people who saw this object are actually Turkey's well-known businessmen. So it was the 17th of September in 1985. A group of businessmen were on their yacht sailing in Bosphorus. And at about 3:30 a.m., they were woken up. And when they got out, they saw this huge object hovering above them. And it was so bright that all of a sudden, they say, everywhere was lit, and it was like daylight. And there was also a great amount of heat emitting from this strange object over them. Of course, they were just so shocked, but even though they tried to contact each other on their radios, but even though they tried 16 different channels, they were unable to contact each other because their radios just wouldn't work, which is a typical thing with the UFO sightings. And after the object slid away, they were able to contact with their radios again, and the whole scene, their sighting, lasted about 5 minutes, by the way. And after their radios started to work, they also contacted the Coast Guard and asked them if they were able to see this strange thing. And the Coast Guard said, yes, I mean, we saw the same thing too, but no one has an answer to what it was. So today, it's still unidentified. Well, now I'm going to tell you an interesting thing which happened in 1999. 1999 was an interesting year for Turkey. Also, there is a sad memory for the Turks about that year, because that was the year when a huge earthquake hit Turkey and killed over 17,000 people. At the time, I was working at Sirius UFO Research Center, and before the earthquake, about 1 month before the earthquake, we started receiving UFO calls reporting UFO sightings every day, about 10 to 20 calls for a month. But that was something very strange for us because you hardly ever get one call in a day. But all of a sudden, we were receiving these calls every day. But then the earthquake hit, and we found out a very, very mysterious thing, because the calls that we were receiving were actually coming from the areas that the quake hit the worst and the most. And of course, today we still do not have an explanation to that. We don't know why that a lot of people were seeing UFOs before the earthquake. But one of the answers may be, just speculating, but maybe that when extraterrestrials are observing us, they must be observing the nature as well. So the best time to do that may be when the planet is on its extreme points, such as earthquakes, volcano eruptions, and other natural disasters. And some people, a lot of people actually, were able to take photographs of these strange objects, and some were able to film them. And many of this footage was broadcast on national TV channels. And here I'd like to show you some of them. If we could start the video, please. These are the ones that we call earthquake UFOs from 1999.
Istanbul. This time, a housewife named Becky Baron videos strange objects with her camera. The objects can be seen very clearly. Do they have anything to do with the UFOs? This question will be discussed for a long time. In the video, it's observed that the object is moving very fast. It's claimed that in slow motion, the object resembled a flying saucer. The chairman of Sirius UFO Space Sciences Research Center, Haktan Akdoğan, made quite interesting comments about the video images.
Here we can clearly see the object and its movements. At a closer look, the physical structure of the object can also be viewed.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Place Istanbul. The area in which illuminated objects are sighted is the upper side of Hayırsız Island. This spot is videoed from a house on the way to Fenerli.
Something is going on out there. Look there, look at this.
Unbelievable. On the top of a hill at Hayırsız Island, on which there is no settlement or activity, orbs of light appear in the sky, which then move, split, suddenly disappear and reappear.
Oh my God! Oh my God! This is a ship. Oh my God, this is a ship. We were very scared at first. We were all very scared, and my children were scared too. Get out of my way, kids, you're pushing me, I'm filming.
It's able to disappear and reappear.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay, thank you. Now, as these objects were seen before and after the earthquake, some of the people thought that maybe these objects were earthquake lights. But even the head of the National Earthquake Society had to make a public release after observing this footage, and he said that these were not earthquake lights because they were not showing any characteristics of the earthquake lights, which are mostly like thunder lights, like lightnings, which do not hover in the sky and emit colorful lights for quite a long time. And he said he didn't know what these were. Now, what I'd like to show you are what I believe to be one of the best daylight pictures of the UFOs ever taken. If we could move on to these slides, please. Two youngsters in 1996 were climbing a mountain in Izmir, which is on the west coast of the country, and it's the third largest city of Turkey. And these two youngsters had also their cameras with them, and they were also taking their pictures on these mountains. All of a sudden, they saw a very, very interesting thing in the sky, and this was broad daylight, and it was a UFO. And if we can move on to the slides, I'll be able to show you some of the pictures of them. These are the two people who saw these objects in 1996. And this is the UFO they saw, and they were able to take its picture. What they say, the voice says that when this thing appeared, it looked like it was showing itself off to these two boys, that it was just hovering there, you know, moving slowly, making no sounds, as if it was allowing those people to take its pictures. That's why the boys say. And they were able to take many snaps of it. And the metallic structure is very clearly seen on these pictures. Then 6 months later, at the same spot, when they visited the same spot with their cameras, this time they saw another object. Which has a perfect disc shape. And this is the close-up. And the title says here, UFO Dispute. Now, what happened is that even though these witnesses saw these crafts in 1996, they didn't come up with their stories until the year 2000 because of the same reason that many people are going through, which is the fear of ridicule. And in the year 2000, they came to our research center with their negatives. And of course, we were pretty amazed to see very clear pictures. I mean, they looked too good to be true. And also, one of the papers was very interested in their story, the one that you saw the headlines of. And they took their story, this two boys' story, and put them on their front page of the papers. And after that, other television channels became very interested in the story. So they met these two boys and asked them to take their negatives with them. And that's what they did. And all together, they went to the university, which is called the Aegean University in Izmir, which is the biggest, largest university in that area. And they took these negatives to the head of the photography department and had him analyze the negatives. And now I would like to show you the interview with the head of the photography department in Izmir. So please, let's run the tape, please. And this was all happening in the year 2000.
That the photos may be fraudulent or hoaxed, we headed for the communications faculty of Ege University to take the opinion of a photo expert. The chairman of Photography and Graphics Department, Dr. Ahmet İmançar, noted that the photos were not exposed to any kind of external factors and said they were genuine.
In the photos, the sky is entirely bright and the objects sighted are positions completely in sky, which is an advantage, because the sky and the objects can be clearly distinguished. If the objects were positioned at another place, there will be a higher risk of hoaxes. Currently, I am assessing both the printouts and the negatives. There is no sign of alteration in the photos, no sign of using a pen, etc. In the photos, we can clearly observe the object. We see it as a horizontal object. Additional analysis is required in order to tell the object's exact elevation from the sky as well as its exact format. I think it was a round object, wasn't it?
Yes.
It seems to be a huge object, perhaps in the size of this room. Probably much bigger than this room.
Okay, we can stop the tape. Thank you. And the room that he's sitting in is about 35 square meters. So he thinks more or less the objects that were seen in the pictures are probably bigger than 40 square meters or something like that. Well, we also took these negatives as the research center and had them analyzed in a Kodak laboratory in Istanbul. And I would like to read the results here, which is dated 16th of June, 2000. As a result of our analysis on the 125mm negative film, we concluded that the images on the negatives are genuine, and there is no sign of hoax on the photos printed out from these negatives. The negatives and the photographs were examined in computer environment, and no modifications were made on them. This is what the Kodak laboratory says. Now we are moving to another city, and this time to the eastern part of Turkey, to Adıyaman. On 7th of June, 2001, a very strange encounter happened in the city of Adıyaman. And the observers were actually government officials. 3 rural guards and 7 gendarmerie patrols were on duty in that city over the mountains, and they were in 2 separate groups patrolling that area, and it was about 10 o'clock in the evening. So what they saw suddenly in the sky was a round-looking object, and it was slightly landing on a hilltop. And they could see this with the naked eye, and they could even see the window openings of the object. And it was emitting colorful lights all around. So these 2 separate patrol groups immediately contacted each other on their radios to confirm if they were seeing the same thing or whether it was a mass hallucination. So these 2 groups were seeing the same things. Everybody in the groups proved that they were looking at the same thing. Then what they saw is that when this object landed on the ground, on the hilltop, it lit its lights off for a minute or 2. There was just no noise at all, complete silence. And these guards were observing the thing with their night binoculars as well. So for a minute or 2, nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, these 10 people saw some small triangular objects emitting a red light, and which came out of the craft, flew around the area, around the hilltop for some minutes, and hovered in the sky, did something, whatever they were doing, just flying around, and then just go back into the craft again. Then after these little triangles were back in the craft put its lights back on again and took off and just slid away. So as this was something very, very important and which also concerns national security, they immediately called their superiors. And their superiors thought, oh, well, maybe we should let the governor of the city know about this. And even though it was very late at night, the governor was taken from his home, and he came to his office, and he called in these 3 rural guards and the 7 gendarme patrols in his office and put them into 10 separate rooms and asked them to write down of the report of what they saw and make a drawing of the crowd that they witnessed. Then what he did, what the governor did, was something that took place for the first time in Turkish history, and which is a official UFO report signed by the governor himself. And here it is on the slide. If we can go back to the slides, please. Now, yes. Halil Işık. Brave man. Brave man. He was the first to do that in Turkey. And he signed this report with his signature, and the report says, that's the cover page of the report, and on the headline it says, "To Sirius UFO Space Sciences Research Center." And it gives little information about the observation that took place. And the whole report is 18 pages, which include the testimonies of the guards and the gendarme patrols, also their drawings. And here are 2 examples of their drawings in the slides. This is what they saw. And here's another drawing. So as you can see, they're all identical. And as I said, this official report of the UFO sighting really excited us, because we were at I was also at the center at the time. We were very much excited. And on this document, it also says that the same document, official document, was sent to Ministry of Interior Affairs and Turkish Scientific and Technical Research Committee by the clerical head office of Adıyaman, and signed by the governor himself. And here is the picture of the 3 rural guards showing their drawings. But you can't see the drawings very clearly. So as I said, he was a very brave man, because that is not governor of Adıyaman did not continue sending some data to our research center and also to press. Another incident from 2002, on January 26, we're talking about the same city again, and this time over 20 officers were able to film the strange objects that were seen over the city. And they did a recording of 5 hours, 20 police officers. And the governor of Adıyaman sent us the tape, but not the whole 5 hours. He just sent a very, very small portion of the tape this time. Maybe he was warned, we don't know. But still, this is very unusual to receive any official data. And I've got the tape with me. But unfortunately, in that, in the tape, the objects don't look very colorful as the police say that they were. So let's run the tape, please. So this is the footage that was recorded by the police, 26th of January 2002. And the following night, on 27th of January, 2 flying objects similar to the one sighted the day before were observed in the skies of Adıyaman, but this time at the western side of the city. And they were filmed from the roof of the police department between 2:30 and 3 a.m. Well, according to the governor of the city, these two objects, a total of 5 unidentified objects, were observed over the city in 2 days. And they were also cited by mass of inhabitants. Also by over 20 police officers. But I don't think this is a very clear tape. I am really curious what is there on the other 4 hours and 55 minutes. I'm really curious about that. Okay, we can go back to the slides now. Another interesting story from 2001. Turkish jets dogfight with a UFO. On the 8th of August, we woke up to see this headline on Turkey's most read newspaper, Hürriyet. And that's what this title says. Turkish jets dogfight with a UFO. At 12:30 on the 8th of August 2001, First Lieutenant Pilot Haluk Dinçer and his student Lieutenant Pilot Arda Güner took off with their 3 T-37 type military aircraft for a training flight from Izmir, which is Turkey's third large city of the country. As they reached the altitude of 15,000 feet, they encountered a UFO. And in that newspaper, we were able to see the radio talk of the pilot with the ground control. That was very unusual. And I've got the script of this radio talk here. Now, what the T-37 pilots, the 37 jets pilot does is that he asks the ground control if they can detect anything other from their jet. And it says, there is an object approaching me at a very high speed from straight ahead. Immediately detect this object on the radars. I have never encountered such a thing. I suspect it is a UFO. So the military pilot utters these words. But of course, the operation base fails in detecting anything else other than the jet. Then the T-37 jet's pilot says that the thing is approaching them from their wings. And now it's at the rear. It's like, I will take it in the front by a maneuver. The object is now over us. This is literally dogfighting with us. And then the object suddenly disappears. The whole scene took about 1.5 minutes. Then the object just disappears in the blink of an eye. Now, as this was all over the papers, it was also on the TV channels the same day as breaking news. Therefore, the media was pushing making some pressure on the Air Force to come with an explanation to what it was. Because this is something very important. It's not any ordinary person who encountered the strange object in the sky. It's the Turkish Air Force's pilot who utters the word UFO. Therefore, the Air Force came with a press release. And now what I'm going to tell you will sound very familiar, I think, because they said what these pilots encountered was a meteorology balloon. Same old story. Well, if Turkish Airlines, Turkish Air Force pilots are not capable of differentiating a UFO from a meteorology balloon, then I think that's very bad news for Turkey. That's very bad news. And of course, these people are actually one of the healthiest people in the country because they are Air Force pilots, and they go under regular health controls. And let's not forget that this was a training flight, and before the training flight, the route is always checked for traffic, and also balloons, of course. And they did not have anything there. And I can't think of two people hallucinating at the same time, seeing the same thing. And of course, I can't think of a meteorology balloon dogfighting with a UFO. Well, if the case is that, then I think it's time to look into the technology in the meteorology balloons, and maybe you should start traveling with them to the space. Why not? So everything speaks for itself. Of course, nobody was able to reach the pilots and make an interview with them. And even though the media ridiculed this meteorology balloon explanation of the Air Force just wouldn't come up with another further explanation. So the case was closed. But this was not the only case that our pilots encountered in Turkey. We've got more examples like that, and I've chosen one of the two best. On the title it says, 25 minutes with a UFO. And this gentleman there, whom I've also interviewed, had a sighting on 5th of September in 1975, and at the time, now, he's a Turkish Airlines pilot, but at the time, he was working for the military. He was a military pilot. And on 5th of September, he took off with his C-47 military transport plane on a very clear night, full of stars. And then all of a sudden, after taking off, appeared an object, a bright object, which looked like the moon, below his craft, below his C-47 transport plane. And it looked very close, therefore the pilot was a bit afraid, and he thought that they were going to collide. So what he did, that he just switched off his lights, then changed the route a bit, and waited what was going to happen. And what he saw was something unbelievable. When I was speaking to this pilot, he looked like he was still under the influence of his unbelievable sighting. So what he saw was that this moon-like object started to change its shape and open up in the middle. Changed its shape like a bicycle wheel. And the pilot was able to see the stars through it. And there were 7 people that day on this military aircraft, and they were looking at the same thing. They were so shocked that when they landed, after flying with this object for 25 minutes side-by-side flight, when they landed, Pilot Öksüm, the one in the picture, wanted to make a report of this incident. But the colonel, his colonel, who then became a general years later, he wouldn't give anyone his name, just did not let him to do so. But now, as years have passed, now he speaks about his sighting. Oh, I've got 8 minutes. So I think I have to speed up a bit. Here's another example of a pilot's encounter, which took place in 1989, and the headline says, "I saw a flying saucer." And they took off from Antalya for Zurich. He was a Turkish Airlines pilot at the time. And at the altitude of 2,000 meters, they saw this egg-shaped object, which flew with them in front of the Turkish Airlines craft for 15 minutes. So in the picture, you can still see the excitement and the astonishment of the pilot who encountered this. Now I want to move on to a very interesting case, an alien encounter which took place in 2001. I think you'll find this very interesting. It's a unique case. Now, 3 villagers from Eşme, this is the place, woke up that morning. It was an ordinary morning, so they got on their tractors, and as they are villagers, they've got this tobacco farm. So just a regular morning, they were going to hoe their tobacco farms. And on the way, these are the 2 witnesses, Mr. John and his wife, and they had another company on their tractor, another villager. On this particular farm, they saw a very strange object 50 meters away from them. When they noticed that this thing was actually moving, then they stopped the car. Mr. John got out of the tractor and started to walk into the field to see what that thing is. Then immediately, the thing which was 50 meters away from him started to rise up in the air for about 2 meters and started to approach him, flying. But they were just, it was not making a sound at all. And it was a thing. It wasn't a craft. It was a thing there, emitting a yellowish and orangish light from its abdomen part. It had no arms, and the had V-shaped legs, and it did not look like a living thing. It looked like a robotic thing. And witnesses say that it was wearing like a gelatin-like suit. And the lady says the suit looked as if it hadn't been ironed because it had some creases on it. And the eyes did not look like living eyes. They looked as if someone just stuck them on the suit or just take a needle and sew it on the suit. So it was definitely not a living thing. And anyway, so the farmer is walking. The creature is flying towards him. So there is 2 meters, and they both stop, looking at each other. Then the man is so shocked. What he thinks is to throw some stones at it so that he could get it down and examine it closer. So he says, Mr. John said, as soon as he got this idea of throwing stones at the creature started to rise in the air, as high as a treetop level. And, but he did throw some stones at the thing, about 3 or 5 stones, but luckily all missed. And of course, these news were all over papers, all over the national channels. There were some shows about these incidents. It was just everywhere for over 2 weeks. And here is the governor of the city of Eşme, showing the drawing of the robotic type alien. Now, why was it seen over there? We have got no answer to that, but that area is very rich in uranium reserves. So could it be for the uranium? We don't know, but maybe, we don't know. And a day after this encounter, here is Eşme, the same thing was seen over here by 2 factory guards, and these are the people who saw the object, but they were just so frightened to see it, they immediately ran away in the factory and told their manager that there was a strange being outside. When they came out, the being was already gone. So as I said, as these news were all over the papers and all the, on the national channels for over 2 weeks, people started to question the existence of the extraterrestrial life from the Islamic point of view. And they invited some of the program makers of the televisions, hosts, just called in some theologians and asked their opinion whether Quran proves that there is an extraterrestrial life out there. And one of the people who made a comment on this issue was actually the head of the Department of Religious Affairs of Turkey. And he said, on the headlines, he says, yes, UFOs may be. And he said, there are creatures not only in this world, but also in this space and in the worlds beyond this space. And according to Islamic beliefs, there are more than 18,000 realms. And UFOs and extraterrestrials may be categorized within these 18,000 realms because we believe there is the realm of the humans, realm of spirits, realm of animals, plants, and jinns. So I wonder if there are more than 18,000 realms, I wonder what the rest could be. But Quran says, yes, there may be some extraterrestrial times. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I think I'll stop here. But before I go, I want to tell you something very interesting about CIA and MIT collaboration. 2 years ago, I saw 2 tiny articles in 2 of the newspapers. They are not the best known papers. They were just 2 tiny articles, and according to the news published on 6th of February in 2003, CIA contacted MIT, which is Turkey's intelligence center, and asked for all the UFO reports to be collected and sent to their headquarters. Now, at the time, we didn't have the FOIA, but someone in your country, Larry Bryant, made a FOIA request and sent his request to FOIA. So the answer that he received was that FOIA neither can confirm it nor deny it. That's the answer he got. But at the time, this law was not enforced in Turkey, and this law has recently enforced now. And I'm looking for a good lawyer, and as soon as I make this request in Turkey, I will let you know about what is going on. But of course, I don't think that there will be a disclosure soon, because this is an issue of national security, and people just won't say, hey, you know what, there are some beings powerful, more powerful than we are, invading our airspace, and we don't know who they are, we don't know their agenda, and they've got very high-tech technology, but, you know, just go back to your homes and have sweet dreams. You know, we're working for you. No one will say that. But I think the answers that we are going to find when there is this disclosure may turn us into another kind of beings. Maybe this would be another evolutionary step in that process. Maybe we are going to move from Homo sapiens to something else new. And I think it's just the time. Don't you think so? Well, thank you very much for listening. That was a pleasure for me. Thank you.